Well, I'm not going to lie, this is a video I wasn't planning on making so soon, but we're here now, so roll the intro. Okay, so officially, I haven't even introduced you guys to my daily project. I call it a daily project, but it was actually my works vehicle. So, I think the only way of explaining it, obviously it's a Peugeot partner, as you can tell by the title. The only way of explaining this situation is just to show you the compilation reel from the events earlier today. That smells a little bit oily. Oh fuck. That would be a hole in the bottom end. Goodbye, van. Fucking hell. She's a bit shaky, lads, on 3 cylinders. So yeah, as you can tell, bottom end has royally shat its pants. She's only a DW8 engine as well, so a lot of people are actually really surprised that I've managed to throw a rod out of a DW8. Wasn't even driving it hard, to be honest. It was just a case of I've been neglecting the van. Don't care to service the engine. It hasn't been serviced since I bought it, and the service light keeps flashing with a nice little spanner symbol and a number reading 50,000. So I would say it probably hasn't been serviced properly for the last 50,000 miles. And all I've done is just keep topping fluids up on top of it. So I really didn't care for that DW8 engine. And to be honest, I was more than happy to run it into the ground rather than spending money on it. Mainly because I was planning these next future events. Just they come a little too early. So yeah, future events. If you've been following this channel, you can already guess where we're going with this. Yes, it's another XUD swap. Wow. But you know I love these engines, and they are reasonably bulletproof as long as you look after them properly. Not like said DW8, but you get the idea. So we're going to be XUD swapping the Peugeot partner van soon. This has actually taken me by surprise a little bit, so I'm a little unprepared. And if you've watched the previous video, you can already guess that my spare cam belt kit, etc., which was supposed to be for the van, has ended up on the sedan. So there's been a last minute scramble to order some bits. Placed all the orders tonight. So we've got another cam belt kit on the way. I've already got a 10mm pump built for the engine. I've made the conscious choice to actually send the cylinder head away. Well, I say send the cylinder head away. I haven't even taken it off the block yet. But we're going to go get that skimmed, because the donor vehicle the engine actually came out of, a Citroen ZX, didn't particularly know the history of that car. I broke the car for parts. It gave me a free engine at the end of it, which was absolutely brilliant. Free engine, free gearbox. Perfect for this swap. The only issue is when I initially bought the car, it didn't actually have coolant in the radiator. So that kind of already tells you it's potentially a boiler. So, just as a precaution, we're going to skim the head, we're going to replace the head studs, multi-layer steel head gasket, and we'll go from there. The swap into the van should, and I'll say this very carefully, should be reasonably simple. On paper, there's a few issues what come with this swap. The main one genuinely being the gearbox situation. So the model of partner I've got is a 2001. It's a pre-facelift, but it's not an XUD. It was a DW8, which means it was partially ECU'd. Now, I've got to satisfy the clocks in a manner which still gives me an RPM counter. Could just be a cowboy, could sling the engine in, could ignore the RPM counter. But I would like it working if I've got to look at it every day of my life. So, I've sat there, I've done some workings out and stuff. The temptation was to stick with the 200mm DW8 clutch and flywheel, but of course that's not going to hold turbo power. This has been done by people in the past with the DW8 box, they just don't hold power at all. It will shit itself imminently as soon as putting a new clutch in. So I've done a bit of research and I found that Citroen Evasions and Peugeot 806 used the same style of flywheel as the DW8, which has the little tags on the outer of the flywheel which pick up on an RPM counter. Now, only certain gearboxes actually have the fitting in the top of the gearbox required to put this RPM counter in. I'm lucky that for some reason the Citroen ZX gearbox has that fitting. If not, it would have been a 2-litre HDI gearbox or something like that, but I can actually still use that XUD gearbox, which I'm happy with. So yeah, back to the clutch situation. So we'll be 806 flywheel, 806 clutch. It's a push style clutch, not a pull style. So that does indeed mean I will need to change the clutch fork on the gearbox. Again, I got these spares for days, so that shouldn't be too concerning. And then, yeah, that should hopefully be the gearbox side of things sorted. The only other thing to contend with is drive shafts. Again, researching on forums, there's a lot of conflicting information on this. So I'm hoping I can literally just sling in 19DT shafts, which I've got abundance of. None of them at the moment are in really great condition, as in most of them do require like CV gaiters or something like that. They're perished. But for now, they'll get the van rolling again. So the basic plan here is cam belt, clutch, head gasket, and then we're going to chuck a 10mm pump on it. I've already got the pump built, as I've already said. The only other issue I've got with the engine is the KKK turbo, which was on it. The wastegate was stuck open, so she wasn't boosting. I don't want to chuck a bigger turbo on it. It's not necessary. It's going to be a standard bottom end on this, and we're going to do a stainless steel exhaust as well. Not quite sure what we're going to do about induction, but we'll figure that out. And yeah, we're just going to basically have to wing this build. The other thing to cover as well is, like I mentioned a minute ago, so DW8 partially ECU'd. We do need the ECU to satisfy the clocks. Now, the ECU isn't going to control none of the fueling or anything here. We're going fully mechanical. But there are basic things that ECU needs to see to be able to satisfy the clocks and get everything working and waking up. So obviously the big one is the RPM counter. We're going to sort that with the 806 flywheel. And then the other thing on there is just a few varied sensors like water temperature, oil and stuff like that. And we can actually rob those sensors back off the DW8 engine, and they do fit straight on the XUD. So there might be a few redundant sensors on the XUD in the end, but we can basically use the DW8 loom just to satisfy things and get it all going. So yeah, bit of a sticky situation, and I suppose we're here now. So yeah, we're building an XUD Peugeot Partner as my daily vehicle. Mint. So we're back to burning the candle at both ends. Got to start prepping this engine for the Peugeot Partner really. So we discussed in the last clip like bits and pieces it needs and stuff like that. I've also made the conscious decision to do a head gasket on it. So when I bought the ZX, the radiator was completely empty. Guy had people come and test driving it and stuff like that. So to be honest, I never managed to drive it long enough to know if it was a true boiler or not. So play it safe. While the engine's at the car, I'll quickly go get a head skimmed and put it all back together. New head gasket, new head bolts. We're not going nothing too extreme on this one. I've got a 10mm pump, but it's just going to go back together with standard head bolts for now. So don't plan on running too much power out of it. Might take it up to about a safe 120. So that'll do. So here indeed is the donor engine. I've had this sitting here for, well, since I scrapped the ZX, so it's probably been here about 6 months now. But this is the engine I always intended to go in. Already had a Bosch set up and everything like that. The only issue is obviously the wiring loom, but that's not going to be no biggie. We'll just fuck that off. She is on the early, what do you call it, tension system. So we've got the pass pump at the bottom, we've got the alternator at the top as such, which gives more access to everything at the top end. The only issue is the van doesn't actually have power steering. I do have a power steering rack, but I just don't have to get up and go at the moment to be bothered to put it all in. So for now, this will pretty much get slung in as is. We're going to paint the block up, we're going to ditch the power steering, and we'll get that cylinder head redone. So no time like the present, I've got to start stripping this down. I just whipped the intercooler off, and there was an interesting choice of bolts holding everything in. We're missing D seals down the back. There's quite a bit going on with this and going on wrong with it, so it's probably a good choice to be stripping it down, to be honest. That intercooler was literally just floating on top, so the bolts what should retain it onto the framework here and here, completely missing. Actually, wherever it went, found a bit of masking tape down the fucking inlet. Maybe this engine isn't such a good donor. Don't really know. I'm going to have to strip it down to find out, plain and simple. But I'm now looking at it, wondering if I can get this dragged out in the open over there, because I'm going to run out of room down here very, very quickly. Christ, forget how heavy these things are. So, just enlisted Logan from next door. Just gave me a hand putting it on the skid, and we've got it out in the open so I can actually work on her. So, right, looking at it, got turbo to come off, intake, we'll have all the thermostat housing to come off, injector lines and stuff like that, so no time like the present, let's crack on. So she's coming apart pretty quickly, finding lots of mistakes by a previous owner, or previous garages which have worked on this, which is basically like reusing gaskets missing, boost lines not being connected properly and stuff like that. So no wonder this thing ran like an absolute dog when I got it. But right, so next got to work on getting that cam belt off, but I've just got to get the rattle gun out so I can get the crank pulley off. But yeah, not too bad for, I think this is about 20 minutes worth of work so far. So things are becoming increasingly concerning as I'm taking this off, or taking the engine apart, and things like the cam belt being so loose, I can practically pull it off the pulleys. That's really bad. It's not actually got many signs of perishing or anything like that, but I mean, this is me, bearing in mind, where are we? Tensioner and everything still done up, not disturbed yet. Christ. Yeah, this is... Hopefully it's not had a mash up in the past then. next concerning one. Removing the bolt from the alternator at the front here. The old double washer setup. But that double washer setup is usually found on the tensioner for the cam belt, so Jesus Christ, this is just getting from bad to worse the more I look. So we ended up with a couple of these head bolts have actually been cut down and reused. So yeah, some nasty bastard has been through that. Yeah, you can see the makeshift spacer as well. Spacers won't be too much of a concern because obviously I've got the spare blocks down the back here, so I can nick the spacers out of them. I should also have a collection of leftover spacers back there somewhere from where I've ARP'd engines in the past. But so bottom end wise, I think surprisingly she looks fairly healthy. I don't know if they're factory home marks or not. I actually can't remember how many miles the ZX was on, but they're very prominent. There's a couple of, as you can see just down there, there's a couple of ghost marks in the bore. Cool. Christ, give me a second. I'm trying to do this one-handed as a pain. This one is probably the worst bore out of the lot, but if you go in there with your nail, I can't feel that at all, so I've got a feeling that's just a ghost mark been picked up. But so the bottom end has actually turned out to be slightly better than I thought. So the head gasket, God knows what was going on with this head gasket situation. Yeah, I think we can definitely say the head gasket had failed at some point and somebody's done a bit of a bodge job to try and keep her going. So it looks like the bolts had been reused, cut down and all sorts to get them to go back on there. When I was opening it up, I'm not going to lie, I was expecting to see like the head had been mashed by a valve or something like that. But every one of the pre-cups is actually really good. They're all dead straight. To be honest, I wish I could keep this cylinder head back for the estate, because these pre-cups are so bloody good it's untrue. But needs must, I need to get the van on the road. That'll mean this is hopefully a fairly reliable engine once I've unfucked and unbodged whatever the previous owner's done to it. So that's pretty much as far as I can go today on the block. That's going to be stripped back, not to a bare block, but we'll leave the bottom end unopened on her, and I'll whip all the alternator off, all the gearbox off, because obviously we've got to change the flywheel setup, and then I will be painting that, probably a nice cherry red or something like that. So while it's out, might as well clean it up and give it a lick of paint. Cylinder head, not quite sure if I'm going to bother doing it myself, so I'll flip the camera around. So yeah, I'd like to strip the cylinder head myself, but at the moment time is a premium. I'm working Monday to Thursdays, which sounds great. I've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday left, but got that many gigs and car shows booked at the moment, but I just can't find the bloody time to actually build this engine up. So at the moment, burning the candle both ends in between the night shift. That brings me to my next problem. Working Monday to Thursday, the company I wanted to use to skim the head, who have done a head for me in the past and it come back looking like glass, which was fucking brilliant. They're only open themselves Monday to Thursday. So the old boy has started stepping down his hours. He's an old school engineer, and I don't blame him, to be fair. He wants to retire, so. But that does leave me in a sticky situation, because that means with my hours on free as well, I'm probably not going to be able to get the cylinder head to him. That leaves me to go back to a company which I shan't name, Engine Diesel Services of Norwich. But the last time I used them, yes, they did me a really good cylinder head, and they rebuilt it and everything, because at the time I didn't have the tools to do it. They did valve work, the full works. They did the full works on the cylinder head for me. Cylinder head come back and yeah, pretty mint. So I went back to them. I took a bottom end, a deck, to be decked, and it was the first engine I'd ever built, so I took it back. I thought, yeah, that looks sweet. Turns out the finish on the surface of it looked more like it had been dragged down a fucking road, and I started building that engine up, asked a few friends, because it started playing on my mind. It's like, it's a bit rough. And then, yeah, it turned out that that block was a total loss, and they had, in fact, skimmed too much off it, couldn't recover it and stuff like that, and I actually ended up having to bin that block, which was £300 loss to me. EDS didn't pick up the cost at all. They weren't interested in trying to help me out or anything like that, and that's why I've been very sceptical about going back to them. Yes, they did do me a very good cylinder head once before, but at the same time, the second job, yeah, not so good, and a 50% success rate at the moment, not looking good. But with the time I've got spare and stuff like that, I don't think I've got no choice here. I think I'm gonna have to consider using them again. So that brings me to, yeah, what do I do? Do I strip this cylinder head down myself, or do I get them to do it? I'd like to do it myself, but it's the time lapping the valves back in later on. I'll probably think on that tonight while I'm on night shift, but for now, this is pretty much as far as I can get the little Peugeot partner engine. Well, I call it a little Peugeot partner engine. It's now the XUD lump. It's going to be as far as I can get the XUD lump together for it. And I'll tell you what, while we're here, we might as well have a quick little walk around the partner, because nobody has actually seen it. It's not officially been introduced on the channel. So sod's law, I haven't actually brought my keys with me, but the work I've done so far has had a brand new rear axle. It's had brand new rear axle under a 800 kg axle instead of the 600 kg spec. All new drum brakes and everything. Obviously, I've got the hideous ZX Volcane wheels, which is basically just there to piss the Irish boys off, and the felt spec. The interior of it, oh, we'll just drop this light off, there we go. So I put two Peugeot RCZ seats in, welded all subframes up and everything, and did them quite nicely. So apart from that, the rest of the van is pretty much hanging at the moment. A couple of patches of welding need doing in it, and then of course obligatory steering wheel and stuff in there. Got a carpet at the back out, got to sort it all out. But that was my little daily workhorse. We're slowly going through bits and tidying it up, but yeah, obviously the engine decided to go boom. So that one was supposed to be a bit of a long-term project. Obviously it's already decked on its ass. Probably actually want to go lower, to be fair. I've got some spare got some spare split rims up there, which I want to rebuild with all the spare parts I've got from like dismantling dimmers and stuff like that. Obviously she's going to have the XUD lump, was going to take up to about 120 brake with a 10mm pump. Don't really know what I'll do about the intercooler setup, probably just leave it factory top mount for now. It's not going to be a race car type thing, so. But then I've got the ZX Volcanes as daily wheels at the moment. I would like to get rid of them. Keep looking out for some like 15-inch Compomotive TH. So everyone's just seen, I've put the Compomotive TH on the sedan at the moment. They're 16s. They're also 8J wide, which far too wide for a van like that. Really need no more than 6J. But yeah, the other thing I want to do with it is potentially carpet the back out, and then probably make like a seat box or something in the back, shelf the other side, little TV, and maybe just chuck a roof tent on it later on. So I keep most of the practicality there, as well as being able to take it and just piss off for a weekend with it, if I can get it reliable, that is. But yeah, and then the only other thing is making a stainless steel exhaust system for it. So there will be an exhaust on it. It will be straight piped. It's me, for fuck's sake. So exhaust wise, probably going to put something a bit daft on it. So where the exhaust tip is there at the moment, I'm thinking of literally just having twin shotgun pipes straight out of that corner. Completely daft and unnecessary, I know, but I've got to make an exhaust for it. I might as well make something cool which I can have a giggle with daily. So yeah, that is the Peugeot Partner project in a nutshell, which has come forward by a fair few months, which I had not intended, but got a deal the cards have been dealt, and well, yeah, here we are now. So stick around, and you might hopefully see this little shit brick get built into some form of fucking, I don't know, wasteful commercial rocket. Yeah, it's going to give me a giggle. It's the van what shouldn't be. So I think what I'll do as well is, once I've actually got all this engine and everything sorted, because a lot of people struggle with this conversion, and to get stuff like the clocks and that working again, I've sat there and I've researched and I've researched and I've researched, and I think I have found like how to run the D-turbo gearbox with having the RPM counter actually working and stuff like that. But what I'll do is, once I've actually finished all this, I'll put together basically a parts wish list for how to do it yourselves. Mildly confuses me that people haven't actually still got this conversion to work properly with the Mark 1 pre-facelift, like having the clocks and everything essentially working. Obviously, if you had the original XUD model of the van, you wouldn't have the RPM counter, but because it's the DW8 version, semi-ECU'd, the ECU has to talk with the clocks to wake everything up. So yeah, a lot of these vans what are still kicking about are actually the DW8 model as well, so you don't see the XUD one so much anymore. And to be fair, you don't see many of them anymore because of just how rusty they got. Kind of lucky with her, I've got 2 small holes I've got to weld up later on, and hopefully I haven't got no rust coming on the rear arches. Something, when it gets to proper summertime, I want to dig all the seam sealer and stuff like that out of the rear end, just bare metal it, epoxy primer, and if there is any rust there, treat it before it actually starts coming through the panels, because these usually rot from the underside outwards to the outer skin. So as long as underneath is pretty okay, the rest of the van should be reasonably okay. But yeah, anyway, I've got a skedaddle. I've got to get back, have a nap, have a wash up, and then I'm on night shift again, so the absolute joys, right? But yeah, so Peugeot Partner, that's where we're at with it. I will catch you later, guys. Like and subscribe, yeah, see you around.